Welcome back to another video in our series on 2D gaming basics with games made in Unity. In this video we're going to be looking at how to do a melee style attack. So I have a skeleton here in my scene, and when I push an attack button, I want him to play just a simple little melee attack animation, and then to see if he's hit anything and to pass on damage to whatever it is that he hit. Alright. So to get started here, we're gonna go get his script open. Here's the skeleton's script that's handling his movement and his attacking. So what we're gonna want to do is add in another key that will be for attacking. So this one that's currently in here, this was for ranged attack, which we covered in a previous video. Alright, so this section here will be for a melee attack. Alright, so first of all, let's get a button for melee attack. So if we go into Unity, let's just see what we have already set up in our input manager. So we'll go to the input manager. Alright, so we're using Fire 1 right here for our ranged attack. That is the left mouse button 0, and the left control key. There's also a Fire 2 that's mapped to my left alt key and to mouse button 1. So we will go ahead and use this. We're going to use Fire 2 for our button. So we'll say if input get button down, if that is Fire 2, then we want to launch a melee attack. Next, let's talk about dealing out damage. So what we want to do is when we attack, we want our skeleton here to see if there's anything in front of him. So we want to kind of give him a range here that he can reach out into. So maybe out to, you know, a unit or so worth of range, maybe not quite. And if anything is out here kind of in front of him in this area, then we want to know about it so we can tell it to take some damage. Alright, so let's take a look in the Unity documentation here. We're going to use this Physics 2D Overlap Circle All command. And what this is going to do is going to allow us to specify a XY coordinate, a point. It's going to let us give a radius, and then we're going to be able to get a return of all the colliders that fall within that circle. Okay, they're going to be stored in an array. They're going to be sorted so that the one that's closest to us is first, and then as they get further away, they'll be further down in the array. So this is going to be our method of seeing if anything is in front of us, and this also allows us to attack multiple things. So if we have two things in range, as he attacks, he could hit them both, or you could just tell it to hit the first one in the array, which would get us the closest thing to him. So it just depends on how you want to set up. You have a little flexibility here. So let's set that up in our code here. So what we're going to do is we're going to get an array of these objects. So let's go ahead and store that. So we'll say we'll get a game object array. We'll call it hit objects, and we'll set that equal to our physics 2D dot overlap. Let's see, overlap. Let's find the circle all. It's going to give us all the things that we hit. We have to give it a coordinate. So for right now, let's just do transform dot position, which will get rewrite the center of our skeleton. We may want to adjust that so that he can't hit things behind him. Then we need to give it a radius as a float. So we can just give it a hard-coded number for right now. Let's just let him go out maybe to 1 unit in length. And then we can give it a layer mask. Just, you know, we're not going to worry about that right now. Basically, this is the two things that we need. Okay. And yeah, I don't think we need those other things. So let's do this, and this should get us a list of all the things that we hit. All right, then what we're going to want to do after we get all of these is we're going to want to loop through each of these objects and apply some damage, or we could just damage the closest one to us. It just depends on what you want to do here. So if we just want to get the closest one to us, what we could do is use the same idea that we used in our ranged attack in the other video that we did, and we could just send a message to the object that takes some damage. Because in that other video we set our objects up with a health script that would be able to take a message from when they get hit. So let's try just giving it the first one. Let's just do the closest one for now. So what we'll do is we'll then say hit objects, and we just want the first one in the array, so we'll say 0. Hit object 0, we'll say send message. The message we want to send is take damage, and then let's send it a damage amount. So let's get some melee damage. We'll set that as a integer variable up at the top. All right, and then so let's do that real quick. So we have our public int melee damage, so that way we can set how much damage this guy does on a melee attack. All right, now we also want to make sure we add this. We want to add a send message option, and we want to say don't require receiver, because if we hit something in front of us that can't take damage, like a wall, then we don't want to actually damage it, and it won't have that take damage function inside of its script, and that'll cause an error to happen if we don't tell it that it's okay not to have anything receive it. Okay, so basically right now what we're doing is we're casting a circle into our scene with a radius of 1 and a center point of my skeleton center, and any colliders that are within that circle are going to get stored in this array of hit objects. I'm then saying let's just get the closest one to us, and we'll send a message to it to take some damage. Okay, and we may want to actually think this through, because we're probably going to get one that is our actual skeleton's collider, and that's probably always going to be the closest one, so we might just damage ourselves. So we'll probably have to modify this a little bit. So we may not, this may not work the way we think it should, but let's just see what it returns. So let's do a little debug .log, and let's just have it tell us hit, and let's get hit objects at that 0 position dot name. Let's just have it tell us the name of the thing that we hit. So let's save this. Let's go out into Unity here now, and it looks like I'm missing something here. Oh, it wants a Unity Engine Vector 2. Okay. It doesn't like the fact that I put this in here without the F after it. So remember, working in float numbers, it likes you to indicate that that's actually what it is. See if that clears it up now. It says cannot convert Unity collider. Oh, okay. So it's returning the colliders, not the game objects. So let's go ahead and just make this a collider 2D array. Instead of a game object array, we'll just get the colliders, and then here we might have to say hit objects dot, let's see if it gives us name. It will still give us name. Okay, let's see how that works. Okay, so let's do this. Okay, let's go ahead and fire off my attack, and you see I hit the skeleton. So the first thing it hits is the skeleton. If I walk over here to the crate and I do my attack, it hits the skeleton. So that's the closest thing. So that means that we probably want to see what the second item is. So let's go ahead and change this to a 1 and a 1. This will get us the next closest to us. So let's check that out and see if that makes a difference. Alright, so now if we play and I hit this, it returns nothing. Okay, I only hit one thing. So we're going to have to do a check before we do anything to make sure there's actually something that was returned. Now if I hit it, I hit the crate. Alright, so that will cause us to hit the second closest thing, which will be that crate there. Okay, so now we're hitting the crate. And that's good. So let's add a few fixes here, and there's probably some better ways to do this. This is just one way. We could just tell it to hit everything and to ignore our skeleton, but before we actually take action, before we send this message, we want to make sure that that position actually exists in our hit objects array. So here we'd have to say if hit objects at 1 is not equal null. Alright, so if it exists, then we'll go ahead and do all these things here. If it is null, it'll skip all this and nothing will then hit. So let's just see if that fixes our issue with getting that error if nothing is in front of us. I'm going to clear out a console. Alright, let's try that. So oh, okay, so because I'm checking it and there's nothing in that index, that won't work. So try it again. So instead of saying that, let's just say if hit objects dot length. So let's get the length of it. That's how many items are in it. If that is, we'll say less than or equal to 1. So basically, if there's only 1 or 0 items in our array when we got it back, then all we got was the skeleton. We didn't get anything else. We need at least 2 items to have an item in position 1. Because remember, arrays start numbering at 0. So a length 1 array has something at 0 and its index. A length 2 array would have something at 0 and 1. So let's try that. That way we're not trying to access any positions in the array. We're just looking at the length of the array, which should exist. And that will keep us from kicking out this error here. Alright, let's try that again. So if I hit my attack button, okay, it's still saying line 60, index. Oh, because I need to say greater than or equal to 1. Whoops. Okay, let's get our logic correct here. I only want it to do this if it's bigger than 1. Okay, so if it's 2 or more objects, then I want it. I did it backwards. Let's try that one more time. I think we'll have it this time. Let's try that. Alright, there we go. There's nothing in front of me. It's not triggering me a message, but if I go to the crate, it does hit the crate. Alright, so we've got a system here now where we can get all the colliders in our area. We're targeting the closest one to us that's not the actual skeleton, and we're sending it a message to take damage. Alright, so now to make the damage work, we have to go out here and give the skeleton some melee damage. So let's look in the script here. Right now it's 0. So let's give him a melee damage of 3. Okay, 3 points of damage. And then if we look at the crates, the crate has a health of 5, and the crate script has a function in it. Let's go to the crate script. It has a function called take damage. This is the one that we're sending the message to, and we're sending it an integer amount of damage. It will minus equal the damage from its health, and if health is below 0 or 0, then it will destroy the crate. So now when I hit the crate, we should see the crate's health drop by 3, so it's going to take 2 hits to destroy the crate. So let's see if that actually happens when we play our game. So we're going to walk over to one of these crates here, and we're going to hit, let's actually click on this crate so we can see its script. So you see here it's got 5 health right there. Whoops, let's go back to the crate here. Let's see if I can actually attack it. I need to click into my game view. Okay, whoops, I just killed it with an arrow. Alright, let's go over to this other crate here. 2 hits should kill it. So there's 1, 2, and it went away because I just dealt 6 points of damage to it. So now we have a way to attack things with our melee weapon, which is just our little hand swipe, and of course I've still got my ranged weapon to the control key. That we did that in the previous video in this playlist if you're interested in making melee. Okay, so that's one way to do a melee damage using a circle that is just created in the scene. And of course, then we can play with like how close should we be able to get to that circle or crate before we hit it. So let's stand this far away, see if I hit it. I don't. So see, I'm hitting him from this far away. So if you don't want to hit the crate from that far away, then you want to just pull down the distance that he can hit it from. So see, you can't hit it here, but here he does. So that might be a little too far away. We might want him to be more like here, which might be half a unit. So we can fine tune that in our script. So what we might want to do is go back to our skeleton script here. Let's not hard code this number anymore. This is the range. So let's just call this melee range. And let's make that a float variable up here at the top. It's always better not to use those magic hard-coded numbers anyway. So melee range. There we go. Okay, that matched up. And then what we can do is out in Unity, we can set that range now on our skeleton. And we can kind of play with the fine-tune it. So let's give him a 0.5 there for melee range. Let's see if that's a little better feel. So we're walking up to the crate. I'm trying to attack it. Can't hit it there. Can't hit it there. Can't hit it there. Can't hit it there. There I'm hitting it. So maybe that's a little too close. I have to be like almost on top of it to hit it. It just kind of depends on your animation. Again, I can't hit it till right about here. That might be okay. Okay. So we're hitting that guy right there. Now the only other thing that might be a problem is we can probably hit things that are behind us. So let's take a look at that. Let's see if we can walk up to this crate. Alright, let me turn around. Let's see if I hit it. See how I hit it and it's behind me? That's because I'm casting that circle right here and it's getting big enough to hit everything all around me. So if I don't want that to happen, I might also want to fine-tune that. So let's take a look at a way of doing that. What we might want to consider doing is instead of using the center point here of our skeleton is actually picking a point out here kind of in front of him that will cast the sphere so that it doesn't get behind him, right? We want an area that's kind of out in front. So a real common way to do that would be on our skeleton to actually just create an empty game object. Let's put our move tool on so we can see it. So here's the empty game object that's right in the center of my skeleton. It's at 0, 0, 0. I can drag that out here a little bit so it's kind of maybe out here in front by the hands. And then I can feed it this point. So let's give this a name that makes sense, like melee attack position. Okay, this is going to be the position at which I launch my melee attacks. I make it a child of the skeleton so it moves with the skeleton. We can also give this a tag if we want to so we can see it, so we know it's right here in front of us. Okay, and then what we would do is get a link to this from our script and then feed that in for our overlap circle. So pretty easy. All we do is make a public, let's get a public, let's just get a public vector 2 because overlap circle just needs a vector 2. We'll call this our melee point. And then down here, for we are doing the overlap circle, let's feed it in melee point. Melee point's a vector 2. It's going to be the XY coordinate of that empty game object that I just gave it. And then we got melee range, which we might want to pull down a little bit. We'll have to see how far away we're hitting now that we're moving our point out a little bit. But let's save that. And then out in Unity, we just have to hook in the melee attack position game object to our script. So you see right here there's a spot for melee point and XY. Let's see if we can just pull melee position to it. Oh, it's not going to let me. So actually I'm going to need, instead of a vector 2, I'm going to need to make that a transform variable so that we can actually pull that object into it, get the transform of that object. So let's go ahead and do a transform called melee point. And then that means that down here we can't just say melee point because it needs the vector 2. So we're going to have to say melee point dot position, which will get the vector 3 position from our melee point transform variable. Back out to Unity here. Alright, now in the skeleton we've got melee point as a transform. Now I can actually grab this and drag it in, and it will grab the transform of my attack position, which is right here, and it will use those coordinates to generate my circle to see if anything is within my range. So let's test this out now. So if I walk up to one of the crates here and I hit my attack key, okay, I can hit him from this far away now, so it's working, but it looks like a range of 0.5. I'm just seeing how close I can get. I haven't hit it yet. There. So now we're back to being kind of far away from being able to hit him with a melee attack. So again, that's just a bit of play testing and figuring out what your range would be. I'm going to bump this down to like maybe a 0.3, because now I'm projecting that circle out further in front. So now I can't hit it till right about here. I think that's probably a little bit better. Okay, so again, just to kind of recap, we set up an empty game object that's a child of our skeleton, just so we could use this as the position to launch our attack from. In our script then, we made that variable down here. When we hit the button that we specified, we're triggering an animation. We're using the physics 2D overlap circle all to get all the objects that we hit with that circle, that we collide with, all the ones that have colliders on it. If we get more than just one result, which means that we got more than just the skeleton, because we're getting the skeleton's collider first, then we're sending a message to that next closest object to our skeleton to take some damage. We're passing some damage. We're not requiring there to be this take damage function on the object we hit, so we don't get an error. And then we were just kind of using this to get some feedback on if we actually hit something. Alright, so that's one way to do that. If you wanted to change this into an area attack, an area of effect attack that hits everything in the area, then all you would need to do would be, instead of just sending the message to this guy, would be just a loop through the array with a for loop and send the message to all the different positions in the array, and that would cause everything in range to take damage. So that's I'm not going to go into that right here, because I think this is probably good enough for what we need to do with our current project. But that is a simple way to do a melee style attack. Hope this was helpful to you. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave some comments below. I'd be happy to answer them. And as always, thanks for watching.